Hello, we're on to Shard 8. You may remember that I'm recording stories from the Bible, which is an amazing book. It's just full of all sorts of interesting tales. And I've put them into my own book called 150 Shards of Light. Hope you can see that. And they're divided up into 150 shards, shard lasting about anything between 5 and 7 minutes. So they're not long, and they tell these stories. And the one we're in at the moment concerns Joseph. Joseph was one of Jacob's 12 sons, but he was hated by the others because Jacob favored him and gave him a wonderful coat, which none of the others had. So when they saw the opportunity, they got rid of him. How did they do that? They put him in a cistern, and when a caravan of Midianites came past, they sold him to them. They took him down to Egypt, where they sold him as a slave to one Potiphar, who happened to be one of Pharaoh's high-ups. And he did pretty well there until Potiphar's wife took a liking to him, wanted him to go to bed with her. He fled, leaving his coat in her hands. She then claimed that he tried to assault her, and Potiphar believed her rather than him. So Joseph ended up in prison. And this is where we take up the story for shard number 8. There we go. So I found favor with this is Joseph talking, I found favor with the prison warder. He put me in charge of all the prisoners and everything that went on in the prison. And because God was with me, I was darn good at what I did. So although I was in prison, I was at least reasonably comfortable. Then these two chumps turned up. One was Pharaoh's chief baker, the other was Pharaoh's chief cupbearer. They had managed to make Pharaoh angry. Never a clever thing to do. Now they found themselves stuck in prison along with me. One night they both had dreams. Now you probably know that in my day, dreams are taken very seriously. But if there wasn't anyone around to interpret them, then life got a bit depressing. And these two were looking quite dejected when I came across them the next morning. So I asked them what the problem was, and they told me. So I said, well, cheer up. Doesn't interpretation of dreams belong to God? So tell me your dreams and I'll see if I can help you. So they did. And I was quite happy to tell the chief cupbearer that within 3 days, Pharaoh would restore him to his previous position. As for the chief baker, he didn't have a hope. And sure enough, 3 days later, he lost his head, just as I told him. Anyway, I said to the chief cupbearer, look, when Pharaoh gets you out of this place, for goodness sake, remember me and plead for my freedom, because I haven't done anything wrong. And I know everybody says that, but in my case, it happens to be true. So please do what you can. Needless to say, he totally forgot. So another 2 years went by, dreary as they were. And I think God was teaching me something about patience, because I had become quite resigned to my lot, when one morning I got a very unusual call. It was from the chief warder. He said, "Get your stuff together. You're on your way to Pharaoh. He wants to see you." So I quickly shaved, got dressed, got rid of all my chains and things, and went off to see Pharaoh. And it appears that Pharaoh had had a dream. In fact, he'd had two dreams as well. And nobody could interpret them. Then the chief cupbearer remembered what I'd told him. And obviously thinking he'd score a few points, he told Pharaoh about me. So Pharaoh wanted me to interpret his dream. And I said, "Look," I said, "I'll interpret your dream, but it won't be me. It will be God that's doing it. Anyway, tell me your dream." So he did. I said, "Well, it's really very clear. What's going to happen is that for 7 years, you'll have in Egypt a land of plenty. It'll be wonderful. But then it's going to be followed by 7 years of famine, and a very serious famine at that. So the sensible thing to do would be to get organized, get the surplus of the 7 years of plenty, store it up against the 7 years of famine." I thought that was the end of it and I'd go back to prison. But it wasn't, because no sooner had he heard all this than Pharaoh says, "Right," says, "I'm going to put you in charge. You're going to organize all this, so get on with it." Do you know what that meant? That meant that I was going to be his second in command. I was in charge of everything in Egypt, of everything in the palace, everywhere. Pharaoh said, "Apart from the throne, nobody will be greater than you." So I got a fine set of robes. I got a wonderful signet ring. I got a horse carriage, and everywhere I went, men ran in front of me saying, "Make way, make way." Gosh, was I special. Well, talk about how the fallen become mighty. Quite reverse to how the mighty have fallen. And I was living high on the hog. And it seemed that Pharaoh had taken a real liking to me. So, what happened then? Just sorting the page out. I rode around in this chariot, and then, oh, I forgot to tell you, even better. Pharaoh gave me a wife. She was from the priestly family of On. And believe it or not, she was not only an aristocrat of the highest order, she was also an absolute beauty, much better than Potiphar's wife. And I was just 30 years old at this point. And you know what? I don't think things could have got any better. But believe it or not, they did. How did that happen? You have to read or listen to shard number 9 to find out. So I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope to see you, so to speak, at shard number 9. See you then. Cheerio, bye.